നമസ്കാരം. പുറത്ത് നിൽക്കുന്ന ആൾക്കാർ അകത്തേക്ക് കയറി നിൽക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ വി ക്യാൻ സ്റ്റാർട്ട്. Okay, I think we should begin. The conversation is about Navarasasadhana. And I'm very happy, honored and proud to talk about the experiences that I have gone through learning from Sri Guru Venuji. Yadi Hari Smarane Sarasam Manu Yadi Vilasa Kalasu Kutuhalam Mathura Komala Kanta Padavalim Shrunu Tada Jayadeva Saraswati. This is from Samoda Damodaram, the Ashtapati Gita Govindam, written by Jayadeva. And what does this shloka says? I'm going to speak a bit in Malayalam and more in English. Krishna Bhaktarkum Shrungara Rasa Varnanatil താല്പര്യമുള്ളവർക്കും ആയ എല്ലാവർക്കും മാധുര്യമേറിയ ഭംഗിയുള്ള പദങ്ങൾ നിറഞ്ഞ ഈ ജയദേവ കൃതി ശ്രവിക്കണം എന്നാണ് പറയുന്നത്. So what does Jayadeva says? If your mind delights in remembering Hari, if it is curious about play, art, pleasure, then listen to these tender, sweet, luminous words written by Jayadeva. See, that's the kind of freedom Jayadeva offers. Gita Govindam does not demand one fixed meaning. You may read it in devotion, you may read it as an erotic poetry, you may read it as philosophy, psychology or pure aesthetic joy. നമുക്ക് എങ്ങനെ വേണമെങ്കിലും ആ ശ്ലോകത്തിനെ കാണാം. ഗീതഗോവിന്ദം വായിക്കേണ്ടത് അതിനെ നമുക്ക് ഒരു ദൈവീകമായിട്ടുള്ള ഈശ്വര ചിന്തയിലേക്ക് യാത്ര ചെയ്യുന്ന ഒരു വഴിയായിട്ട് വേണമെങ്കിൽ കാണാം. അതിന് വളരെ ദൈനംദിന ജീവിതത്തിൽ നടക്കുന്ന സംഭവങ്ങളായിട്ട് കണക്ട് ചെയ്യാം. എങ്ങനെ വേണമെങ്കിലും ഗീതഗോവിന്ദത്തിനെ വായിക്കാം എന്നാണ് തുടക്കത്തിൽ കവി പറഞ്ഞു വെക്കുന്നത്. So the kavi gives, the writer gives the option to listen to it, watch it, enjoy it, experience it the way you want it. And why did I say this here? Gita Govindam is the text which helped the performative art to flourish. Navarasasadhana is not different from this. It gives us a space. It opens layers and layers and layers, and it frees you. You're free to travel whichever way you wish. And anything that is so substantial, so filled with strength, it gives you the freedom to move around in it. That is what Navarasa Sadhana provides. So, and it is an acting technique or a theatre experience developed by, I would say, my guru, our guru, Sri G. Venu. And I would say this is the best acting technique I have come across. It's a very small life that I have led, but this is the most, the strong and substantial acting technique that I have come across as a art practitioner, of Indian art practitioner. And it is equal for anyone. It is for the Western world or Western aesthetics or Eastern aesthetics. Anyone can follow it because it is so global, so universal in its nature. And why I say that, and I would like to state that very strongly and prove it in my own ways that I have experienced it. See, I'm not a scholar, I'm not an academician, I'm a performer. So whatever I say today is from my experience, my lived body, how I have lived Navarasasadhana, how I have experienced Navarasasadhana. So So Navarasa, when we think about Navarasa, we categorize it as a catalog. But it is not something like that, right? We know that. It is a lived experience. And Navarasa sadhana is not about becoming expressive, but it is also to become aware of what you do. Aware of what arises in your body. Aware of the memory that touches you. Aware of how breath, voice and movement respond to you. നിങ്ങളോട് നിങ്ങളുടെ ശരീരം, മനസ്സ്, ശ്വാസം, ഗതി എല്ലാം എങ്ങനെ സംവദിക്കുന്നു എന്നുള്ളത് അറിയുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ് നവരസ സാധനയിലൂടെ നടക്കുന്നത്. ഇതേ കാരണങ്ങൾ കൊണ്ട് തന്നെ എനിക്ക് നവരസ സാധന തുടങ്ങി എനിക്കൊരു ചോദ്യമുണ്ട്. I always had this question when I started Navarasa sadhana. Why is it Navarasa sadhana? Why is it not Navarasa sadhagam? Because sadhagam is a term that we use, we practice. Because people keep asking me, do you practice Navarasa sadhana every day? Like how do you practice it? What is your practicing methodology about Navarasa sadhana? I find it very difficult to explain. How do you practice Navarasa sadhana? Because I don't find it as a sadhagam, but as sadhana. What is the difference between sadhagam and sadhana? When it is a repetitive movement, you are mastering your techniques, you are developing your skill. It is sadhagam in a repetitive movement. But when it comes to sadhana, it is transformative. It is completely transformative. You can find sadhagam in sadhana, but you will not be able to find sadhana in sadhagam. Am I confusing or is it clear? So I find Navarasa sadhana as a process, as a technique, acting technique which transform you from within. It is an initiation. I will come to that point, how it becomes an initiation. ഇത് എങ്ങനെയാണ് ഒരു ഇനീഷ്യേഷൻ ആയി മാറുന്നത് എന്നുള്ളതിനെ കുറിച്ച് ഇത് പറഞ്ഞു വരുമ്പോൾ അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് ചർച്ച ചെയ്യാവുന്നതാണ്. സോ ഒരു ഡാൻസർ ദിവസവും സാധകം ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴല്ല അതവിടെ ഒരു നൃത്തത്തിന്റെ പൂർണ്ണത വരുന്നത്, മറിച്ച് അത് ഇന്റേണലൈസ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴാണ്. ഡാൻസർ മേ ഡു സാധകം ഡെയിലി, ബട്ട് ദേ എൻറ്റർ ഇൻ ടു എ സാധന വെൻ ദ പ്രാക്ടീസ് begins to change perception. Your perception about your art, the perception about the way you see your art, way you see your body, way you present yourself in front of the audience, way you grasp yourself as a person, as an artist. So these things makes the difference. So that is what is sadhana. Sadhana is a continuous conscious engagement with your body, breath, memory, sensation and awareness. And how I realized this, how I realized that this is sadhana. This is an example, what I experienced in my class. So in the class, we were asked to do Ravana. So Ravanane namukku avതരിപ്പിക്കാനുള്ളത്. Appo that's the first time I am using voice in my acting. So voice is very, very important. The voice is gwe. ഈ ഗുവേ എന്ന് മാത്രമേ വിളിക്കേണ്ടേ, അതിൻ്റെ ഒപ്പം ശ്വാസവും എടുക്കണം. അപ്പൊ ഈ ഗുവേ എന്നുള്ള ശബ്ദം, ദിസ് ദ ഫസ്റ്റ് ടൈം ഐ എം യൂസിങ് ദ സൗണ്ട് ഗുവേ എന്നിങ്ങനെ വിളിച്ച് ശ്വാസം എടുത്തുകൊണ്ട് ഐ എം റേസിംഗ് അപ്പ്. I didn't know the difference. I was sitting down and I was invoking Ravana, and with the voice and with the breath, I just gave my strength and I got up. But something happened within my body. Some electricity passed through my system. From spine, it just lit up. And I couldn't control myself and I held on to the pillar behind me because I was feeling dizzy. I couldn't hold it. So that was the first experience. Like, I never thought that, acting or dance could take me to that level of experiencing my system. So that was an initiation for me. And from then we started practicing on, when I did Navarasa sadhana, the first phase, it was for 30 days. So it was intense and it was so opening for me. So it was Ravana, and from then the breath and the voice started communicating with me. And it wouldn't have happened if Navarasa sadhana I didn't attend Navarasa sadhana. And later, now I don't have to say gwe, or I don't have to, think about my breath. The moment I think or I feel that I'm doing Ravana or this is what I'm going to do, my body memorizes it. The voice happens at my nabhi and it just comes out. It doesn't have to be out, but gwe happens within my system without the voice. But that's a training that I got through Navarasasadhana. This is very, very intense. We don't get it in regular practice. It actually comes, or it is a training that happens in the old tradition. I think all the traditional art forms had this capacity of unveiling this energy, which was lost in the passage of time. So this Ravana gave me, that initiated me into the breath and voice through Navarasasadhana. And in Navarasasadhana or in acting, we don't ask how do you do Raudram? എങ്ങനെയാണ് രൗദ്രം അഭിനയിക്കാന്നല്ല ചോദിക്കുക. You don't ask how do you do Raudram? But the question should be, what does anger do to my breath, my spine, my eyes, my temperature, my color? It is not about how you do it, but what it does to your system. അത് എങ്ങനെയാണ് രൗദ്രം അഭിനയിക്കുക എന്നുള്ളതല്ല, മറിച്ച് രൗദ്രം ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ എന്തൊക്കെയാണ് എൻ്റെ ശരീരത്തിൽ സംഭവിക്കുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ് ചർച്ച അവിടെ. എൻ്റെ കണ്ണുകളിൽ എന്താണ് സംഭവിക്കുന്നത്, എൻ്റെ ബോഡി ടെമ്പറേച്ചർ എങ്ങനെയാണ് മാറുന്നത്, മുഖരാഗം, ഇത് എൻ്റെ സ്പൈനിൽ എന്താ സംഭവിക്കുന്നത്, അവിടെയാണ് നമ്മൾ ചർച്ച വരുന്നത്. അതല്ലാതെ അഭിനയിപ്പിച്ച് കണ്ണ് തുറപ്പിച്ച് ഇങ്ങനെ അങ്ങോട്ട് നോക്കിയാൽ രൗദ്രം എന്നുള്ളതല്ല. ഈ രൗദ്രം ഇന്റേണലൈസ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ what happens in your body, that matters. Yesterday, Usha Chechi's, if any of you were there, her Ahalya, the moment, she was ശാപം കൊടുക്കുന്ന ഒരു ഭാഗമുണ്ട്, the curse, she just stood like that, and it just, I felt a shiver going through my body. It was so internalized, that anger was so internalized, and it reached the audience, and that is rasam. Navarasa, the rasa nishpati, or what you experience. So that is what Navarasa Sadhana has given me. It has initiated me into breath and voice, the combination of it. See, this makes me move to another segment of Navarasa Sadhana training, Vyabhijari Bhavas. It is transitory states. We talk about it. We discuss about it all the time. Sanchari, Vyabhijari Bhava. But Vyabhijari Bhava എന്താണെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ ഇങ്ങനെ ഒറ്റ വാക്കിൽ പറയാം, transitory movements. It's said that it's transitory states. But what is it exactly? In Navarasa Sadhana class, Vyabhijari, Sanchari Bhava is actually detailed. It is detailed. When I did first phase Navarasa Sadhana, Vyabhijari was very, very difficult for me because I was still a dancer. I had to do homemaker. So instead of, to be natural as a homemaker, I couldn't. Enikku Natyarambam varanam. Appo the way I lift my plate or show things, my elbows were up, and I couldn't go beyond it. But it stayed, it stuck in my head, and I worked on it. And later, the second phase of Navarasa Sadhana, when I explored it, Vyabhijari Bhava was the most beautiful thing because it just oozes out. I could just say dialogues. I could just move. I could be free. My body was not there. I could just, experience everything around to me. That's because the initiation happened in the first phase. And something like a friend of mine said, she attended Navarasa Sadhana, and she said, after Navarasa Sadhana, something in my system, a tap opened. അതാണ് എൻ്റെ ഒരു സുഹൃത്ത് പറഞ്ഞത്. ഒരു ടാപ്പ് തുറന്ന പോലെ എന്തോ കെട്ടിക്കിടക്കുന്നു, ഈ ടാപ്പ് തുറന്ന പോലത്തെ ഒരു അവസ്ഥയാണ് എനിക്കെല്ലാം എൻ്റെ ശരീരത്തിൽ അനുഭവിക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്നത്. സോ ദ സെയിം വേ ഇൻ വാട്ട് ഈസ് വ്യഭിചാരി ഭാവ, ഈ ട്രാൻസിറ്ററി സ്റ്റേറ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മളൊരു എക്സാമ്പിൾ ആയിട്ട്, ഐ എം ജസ്റ്റ് ടേക്കിംഗ് എൻ എക്സാമ്പിൾ. ഇഫ് യു ആർ ഡൂയിങ് ദ രസം ഇസ് ശൃംഗാരം ആൻഡ് ദ സ്ഥായി ഇസ് രതി. ഇനി ട്രാൻസിറ്ററി, നമ്മുടെ സഞ്ചാരി ഭാവം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് എന്താവാം? So Sringaram, if you take an example, the woman, the Nayika is waiting, very typical, very common example I'm taking. The Nayika is waiting for her beloved. So she is sad that he is not around. So how do you establish that character? Sringaramana rasam undakkandathu, rathiyana idinte sthayi. Ee sthayikku vyathyasam varade, without changing the sthayi, how do you strengthen the sthai of the character. That is what is Vyabhichari Bhava. So if she is in a state where she is depressed and she's waiting for her beloved, she could go into smriti. Vyabhichari Bhavathile smritilike povam. So that will be in a place where she'll be thinking, oh, I had such a beautiful time with him. Those sweet nothings he just poured into my ears. So that's a beautiful narrative that she draws, and it is smriti. She's remembering about something, and that supports the sthai rati. She could also think about shanka, doubt. She could think, ayyo, alke nodu ishtalyande ayindavo. Does he love me or not? Is he going to come back? And maybe we can bring a narrative like, does he love me and love me not? Love me not. Like how we do something like that. And a small example. And that's the shanka, that's a doubt that she is going through, which again strengthens the sthai. So these are very, very simple way we adapt it into our dance in Bharatanatyam, Kuchipudi, Mohiniyattam. But in Navarasasadhana, we experience it in detail. How do I explain? Vyabhichari എന്നുള്ളത് വിചാരിക്കണ്ട. If you are thinking of ഇഷ്ടജന വിയോഗം വേണ്ട, ഇപ്പൊ പട്ടിണി എന്നുള്ള അവസ്ഥ തന്നെ വിചാരിക്കും. പട്ടിണി അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ദാരിദ്ര്യം, നമ്മുടെ ഒരു ഗ്ലാനി, നിർവേദം ഒരുപാടുണ്ട്. അതിൽ പട്ടിണി എന്നുള്ളൊരു അവസ്ഥ വിചാരിക്കുകയാണെങ്കിൽ we go in detail to പട്ടിണി. Like what we experience with our body, like how we go into that place where there is nothing left in us. We are just ingane urugi illyandayi, there is nothing left in us nalloru avasthayilekku we take our body, we take our mind, we live that experience to that extent that we just vanish into the thin air. And why do we do it? Why is it so important to experience it in our body? Because it's a question, like, Vyabhichari Bhavam transitory alle, adingane ponda sadhanangalalle. Why do you have to experience it in such detail? It is very, very clear. You have to go through this. You have to understand what it really means. Then you can bring it into the subtlest form. Your body will remember, your system will remember it. Before Navarasasadhana, Ashan always shows us a video. അതില് അമ്മനൂർ മാധവച്ചാര്യാരുടെ ഒരു ഭാഗമുണ്ട്. So in this is an act where he's riding, he's sitting in his Pushpaka Vimanam, and to his servant he has to say, go away. So he sits like this. So this is also something that I learned from Navarasasadhana. Like before, when we talk about Veera, the moment we say Veera, we just expand our body and we throw ourselves out there and like I am Veera. But then I realized Veera is not a person who goes like that, but is a person who is always calm. Because his reflex system is so sharp, he doesn't have to be like this all the time. But when it comes necessary, it just acts. So Amanu Rashan is sitting like this as Ravana. You will think, how is this Ravana? But when he had to say go away, he didn't do anything with his hand. He just sat there. It's a black and white video. First lecture demonstration, I guess. I can't do it. I'm just explaining things. I can't do it. I don't think anyone can do it. See, he just made a small jerk with his body and his eyes moved. So what I could hear, he didn't move his mouth at all. But what I could hear was, എങ്ങനെയാ പറയണ്ടെന്ന് എനിക്കറിയില്ല. I don't know how to say this. Go away or like just move, take. അങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരു സാധനല്ലേ, കടക്ക് പുറത്തുനിന്നൊക്കെ നമ്മളിങ്ങനെ ആ ഒരു ഇതിൽ പറയില്ലേ. That was established in seconds, just with his eyes and body movement. How was that possible? That's because the act, the elaborate act is memorized in the body. You just have to one movement, one eye movement, you can just ward off that person. That's the kind of acting technique we've been blessed to have through Navarasasadhana. I almost always when I speak about all these things, I get very, very emotional. So I was tense from the morning, and one thing I was telling my friend was, I hope I won't cry. It's just very emotional when I speak about the whole thing. I don't know. Probably it is because this is the most beautiful thing that has happened to me in my artistic life, or basically in my life. Yeah. So it's basically the experience is inside and you are witnessing yourself and experiencing it. So, Sir also says this, we have many techniques trained, techniques to do in the beginning. Eyebrow movements, kanna sathagam, with eye movements, cheek, lips, body. We are trained in all this and we practice it every day. So, this also happened. When we were doing Shrungaram, so Venuji told us, see, when you do Shrungaram, you have to feel in your system, you will feel the taste, you will feel in your face, cheek, and your eyebrows will dance. And I wondered, how will eyebrows dance? Because it was very difficult for me even to move the eyebrows in faster movement. It was a task. But, I just internalized it and I trust, I submit. I completely surrender to what he says. So it was just in my system, eyebrows will dance. And we were experiencing Shrungaram. And one day, the Miravu was there, or I don't remember, we were doing Shrungaram and naturally my eyebrows started moving. And it started moving and I couldn't control, and the Shrungaram was also just going like that. And I started crying, and not because of Shrungaram, but I started crying because, something else happened in my system. Something else is initiated in my body. Now I don't have to do it. The moment I think about Shrungaram, or whichever degree it is, it's a high level Shrungaram or lower level Shrungaram or anything, ഏത് തരത്തിലുള്ള ശൃംഗാരത്തിന്റെ അവസ്ഥ വരികയാണെങ്കിലും അത് അവിടേക്ക് അങ്ങനെ നോക്കി ആ വിഷയത്തിലേക്ക് അങ്ങോട്ട് വരുമ്പോഴേക്കും, the moment I get into it, my eyebrows start moving with the intensity it has to move. So recently when I performed in my Chennai, my friends asked me how does it work? How does your eyebrows move? How does your body shivers? I said, I don't know. It is a technique. I know it is a technique. You practice it, but then it comes naturally. It is invoked and it will comes naturally when it is necessary. That necessary is also very important. A necessary varunadu, that we get that necessary because of the detailed practice of Vyabhichari. Because we go deep and deep into it, your system will remember what, how. Or technical, you beat your hand, you remember the pain. You don't have to beat all the time to remember the pain. Now I know what's the kind of pain. അതേപോലെയാണ് ഇതിന്റെ ഓരോ ടെക്നിക്കുകളും. You learn it and then you invoke it. That's the beauty of this sadhana. So expression becomes a consequence, not a decision. You don't decide to do it. It becomes a consequence of the character. ഇതിനോട് കണക്ട് ചെയ്തിട്ട്, because of the time, I'm also worried about it. I would like to connect to another topic. See, I'm a student of psychology, so everything that Gita Govindam പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ തന്നെ നമുക്ക് എങ്ങനെ വേണമെങ്കിലും ഗീതഗോവിന്ദത്തിന് വായിക്കാം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ തന്നെ നവരസ സാധന, whichever branch you are from, you can view it from that particular view. So I am a student of psychology, and something actually opened up my whole concept of how emotions arise in your system. So in Navarasa Sadhana we have a practice, transilikku poova, oru transinte oru avasthayundu, adbhudathilana adu variya. So when we do adbhuda, when we practice the rasa adbhuda, it ends in trance. So ee trance ennu parna sadhanam namukku undaki edukkan pattilla, അത് അഭിനയിക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല. അഭിനയിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അത് അഭിനയാണെന്ന് മനസ്സിലാവും. Because I have seen many people dancing trance, acting trance. You cannot act trance. It is fake and it will be caught. But what is trance എന്നുള്ളത് എനിക്ക് നവരസ സാധനയിലാണ് മനസ്സിലായത്. So when we were practicing 15 days, all of us were faking it. Trance, ഒന്നും വന്നില്ല, ജ്യോതിയും വന്നില്ല എന്നൊക്കെ പറയുന്ന പോലെ, nothing came. There was no trance at all. But one day, Sir just said, you just have to jump. It will happen. Everything that he says, okay, he'll only says 1 or 2 words once in a while. Rest is all stories, but he will not give you suggestions. 1 or 2 words, and those are precious. It's diamonds. You just have to wait for it and catch it and hold on to it. So he just said, just jump, it will come. So I just started jumping, jump movement. I have no clue. I just went into a trance, like in a very ritualistic movement, like how you go into a trance state in a temple situation or a ritualistic process, and I lost it and I couldn't control and I fell down. And the next day onwards, all my friends, our other participants, we all got into this trance. So this was an experience for me. But what I am coming to is not that. This is a collective memory. Something that my body remembers, or transgenerational, I would say. This is where I connected to psychology. So the next Navarasa Sadhana camp, I went to watch the performances. There was a foreigner, Western, she was from West, and her trance was entirely different. Her trance was a little bit of madness. I could see glitter in her eyes, and she started laughing aloud, and she went into a trance, and it was utter pure madness. It was completely different from the trance that I experienced. So why did that happen? I was like, I thought trance is this, but it could be something else also. That actually connected me to the theory of collective conscience or archetypes. We have a transgenerational collective memory. So what we have in my system or our system, the trance goes into a very ritualistic process, but in another country, or where their archetypes or where their emotions or the shared experience are different, their expression changes. That was a revelation for me. Like how rasa or acting, emotion is so involved within our system. We all try to put acting into a template, or a module undav. See, for example, when Swapna Sundari was taking a class, she was saying, whenever we have to show Krishna, we immediately put a flute up. And whether he wants to play or not, no. Even when he is getting married, we have to show him flute. So on his own wedding, he has to play flute. So Krishna is just, it's a template. We just go into that particular template. So it is not that. So when we do Navarasa Sadhana, I think we are triggering the most important thing, the archetypes of the collective unconscious, that collective conscious that we all have in our system. So that is something that I'm working on, rasa and the Jungian theory and Freudian theory, and it is so beautiful and so what to say, opening for me. See, for example, rasa trance pole thanne maranam kanikana. If we are showing death, it's a huge difference. Like, if we are showing death, immediately oru point kayumbekkum ingane oru nenjathadi varan vazhiyundu. So we will cry aloud. So there is an outburst of sadness. We may cry, we may fall, and we will fall on the dead body, and we beat our chest. And probably in the acting, it goes into that particular state, because that is what our body memorizes. That is what we have seen. Our culture reminds us. That is what is in our system. But when it comes to another country or another culture, probably it will be sitting silent. It can be just, a place where that person is also dead. It can go into that place, because that's culturally what they remember, that what their body remembers. So that was also something very, very ഒരു revelation പോലെയായിരുന്നു എനിക്ക്, to listen to my inner voice and to invoke, which is very, very important. നമുക്ക് ഇന്ത്യൻ ടെക്സ്റ്റിൽ ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു കോൺഷ്യസ് എന്നുള്ളൊരു വാക്ക് സൈക്കോളജിക്കൽ ടേം ഇല്ല. ബട്ട് ഇഫ് യു ലുക്ക് അറ്റ് ഇറ്റ്, സ്മൃതി, വാസന, സംസ്കാരം എന്നൊക്കെ പറയുന്നത് നമുക്ക് ഇതിലേക്ക് കണക്ട് ചെയ്ത് കൊണ്ടുവരാൻ പറ്റുന്നതാണ്. According to Indian aesthetics, it is a aesthetic experience. But when it comes to psychological terms, it is an archetypal activation. So this is something that I'm working on from Navarasasadhana. That's what I'm again saying, like, it opens you different branches to explore and to gather and invoke. And the very crucial point for performers at this point is to feel. You do not feel everything personally. You recognize the emotional pattern. You allow it to move through you and release the ownership. This is again, I'm just going to give you an example. What Sir said. So when we were doing Navarasasadhana, there was a point, it was getting too much. I couldn't sleep. I had bad dreams every day. It was too much. ഭയങ്കരമായിട്ട് ഇങ്ങനെ ദുസ്വപ്നങ്ങൾ കാണുകയും ഇങ്ങനെ ഉറക്കമില്ലാണ്ടേയും, because we were working on രൗദ്രം, വീരം, ഇഷ്ടജന വിയോഗം എല്ലാം കൂടെ ആയിട്ട് ഇങ്ങനെ I couldn't control. It was too much. And I had bad dreams. So I went and asked Venuji. I wanted to know, is it all right? Is it okay with me? So I went and asked Venuji, like, ഇങ്ങനെ സംഭവിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്, എനിക്ക് സ്വപ്നങ്ങളൊക്കെ കാണുന്നു, I'm getting bad dreams, what do I do? As usual, he was as cool as possible. He sat there and without any emotion he said, Shantam കഴിയുമ്പോൾ ശരിയായിക്കോളും. With Shantam everything will be set. He just said that word. And I trusted again, submitted. Okay, Shantam കഴിയുമ്പോൾ പൊക്കോളും. And I waited. And you know what? The moment we started working on Shantam, everything started disappearing. Why? Because Shantam was not taught to us like that, but it was witnessing. It was like a third person. I was witnessing myself. I was immersed in whatever I was doing and whatever I was going through, and everything just vanished. And probably that is why Shantam was never a rasam. It was 8 rasas if you look at Natyasastra. And Shantam was added. Because every emotion starts with that stillness and ends in that stillness. It starts with Shantam and it ends in Shantam. So whatever we were going through, that is why it is a sadhana. Navarasasadhana is not a therapy or a sadhagam, but it is an initiation. It is a sadhana where everything just culminates in Shantam. So this is what I'm saying, like, ഈ words of wisdom എന്ന് പറയല്ലേ, കുറേ ഒന്നും പറയണ്ട, 1-2 വാക്ക് പറഞ്ഞാൽ മതി, അതിലെല്ലാം ഉണ്ട്. That is what Venuji has given us, all of his students, and everyone learns something new, something different from in each class. What I experience is maybe not what something the other person experienced. That is because of his presence. And that is what I want to conclude my conversation with. Why this is possible. Again, I don't want to get emotional about the whole thing. It is the Guru and the space. The most powerful aspect of Navarasasadhana is the presence of the Guru. You have to bare your soul without no judgment, without performance pressure. നിങ്ങൾ ഒരു മറയില്ലാതെ, you bare your soul, you just open yourself out there. You go into whatever extent you want to go there. But you have a person sitting in front of you whom you trust, who is non-judgmental. He will not judge you. He will not make a comment on what you do, because the emotions that you go through is your lived experience. It's what you feel, and that is right all the time. That is your personal journey. And a person to have that kind of magnanimity, to sit there and watch, and to give you that space, safe space. That is why Navarasasadhana becomes more and more important. To give you that space, that safe space to bare your soul and to be whatever you want. And I'm eternally grateful for that space. Everything. Whoever has attended Navarasasadhana knows that. The presence of Guru and the atmosphere and to the space that you can travel to. This safety is very essential because truth only emerges where there is no fear. There's no doubt about it. And how did this all happen? I'm concluding. And why did this Navarasasadhana come from a person like Venuji? And that is because it is him, his life, his experience. Whenever I speak to Venuji, it's just an outpour of knowledge system and lived experiences. So the other day I was speaking, he had a magazine started when he was 12 or 13. കയ്യെഴുത്ത് മാസിക, ഒരു 13-12 വയസ്സുള്ള ഒരു കുട്ടിയുടെ കയ്യെഴുത്ത് മാസിക. By around the age of 15 or 16, he started working on the notating the Hasta Mudras for Kathakali. And for nights he sat and he wrote. Just imagine, a teenager aanu ട്ടോ. He's notating Kathakaliyude കൈമുദ്രകൾ. ഒരു 15-16 വയസ്സുള്ള കുട്ടി, he's notating. And I'm skipping like endless years in between. When did he publish the whole text? Maybe 5 or 6 years. He started when he was, I'm very emotional. He started when he was probably 15 and he published it maybe 5 or 6 years ago. Probably 70 years of waiting or 60 years of waiting. അത്ര കാലത്തെ ഒരു വെയിറ്റിംഗ്. ഈ വെയിറ്റിംഗ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഇറ്റ്സ് പേഷ്യൻസ്. ഹി ജസ്റ്റ് ട്രസ്റ്റഡ് ഇൻ ഹിസ് ആർട്ട് and he waited. It's, see, you know Venuji, he was a part of world theatre, maybe Sangeet, Kendra Sangeet Natak Academy. He had എല്ലാ മേജർ ഓർഗനൈസേഷന്റെയും ഭാഗമായിട്ട് നിന്നിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു വ്യക്തിയാണ്. പക്ഷേ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ ഒരു വർക്ക് പ്രസിദ്ധീകരിക്കാനായിട്ട് 60-70 വർഷങ്ങൾ എടുത്തു എന്നുള്ളതാണ് പറയുന്നത്. അത്ര കാലം വെയിറ്റ് ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്, അത്രയും കാലം പണിയെടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. 13 പുസ്തകങ്ങൾ. He has written almost more than 13 books. This is a lifetime work. We are talking about a person who has worked so much, who has contributed to this world of art so much. He talks about Dostoevsky and Stanislavski, and we talk about Pina Bausch, and why not Venuji? This theatre, this acting techniques is not any less. We should be discussing his work. Sometimes I asked him, once I asked him, sir, aren't you fed up of this particular field and what do you feel? He said, no, I don't bother. This doesn't bother me at all, because you know what matters for him is to work in art, and that is an outpour. It is just happening. So he is contented. That peace, that content is very important. And that content, that peace, that stability, that power and curiosity, I think he's still a child. That curiosity, a childlike curiosity to see arts, to work on it, adana taking him there. And that is what made such beautiful acting technique Navarasasadhana. And the art world, the entire universe, the entire art fraternity is forever grateful for the work that you have done. And if you can do a little bit of what you do in your life, our life is complete. And I completely surrender to the knowledge system that he has given to us. So I conclude, Navarasasadhana is not about mastering expressions. It is about meeting yourself with honesty and allowing that truth to move through your body, breath and awareness. You're always my inspiration and you're my Gurunathan, and I bow in front of you. Thank you so much.
ഒരു അഭിനയ കളരിയുടെ നാൾവഴികളും അതിൻ്റെ പ്രത്യേകതകളും ദീർഘനാളത്തെ ആ ഒരു പ്രയോഗ രീതിയിലുണ്ടായ സദ്ഫലവും ഇത്ര കൃത്യമായി അടയാളപ്പെടുത്തി ലോകരെ അറിയിക്കുവാനും ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു പ്രസന്റേഷൻ ചെയ്യുവാനും സാധിച്ച ശ്രീലക്ഷ്മി ഗോവർദ്ധനോട് കഥകളി ക്ലബിൻ്റെ പേരിൽ പ്രത്യേകം നന്ദി. അവരെ അനുമോദിക്കുന്നതിനായിട്ട് വിനീതയെ വേദിയിലേക്ക് ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു. താങ്ക് യു. അല്പസമയത്തിനുള്ളിൽ കളി ആരംഭിക്കും. വേദി ഒരുങ്ങേണ്ട സമയം.